The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid open with a soft hiss. Ambassador Jin-Woo Park walked through them with steady steps, his dark suit clean and pressed. Behind him followed two junior diplomats, their faces calm despite the tension that filled the air like electricity before a storm. The chamber was huge, with curved walls that reached up toward a dome of clear metal. Through it, stars shone down on the gathered representatives of 43 species. Each delegation sat in their own section, designed to match their physical needs. The Zephyrians needed extra oxygen, so their area was sealed with breathing tubes. The crystalline hegemony sat on platforms of pure light, their bodies sparkling like living diamonds. Jin-Woo took his seat in the human section. It was smaller than most others, positioned near the back. The message was clear. Humans were new here, barely worth notice. For 50 years, Earth had accepted this position without complaint. Today would be different. Council leader Vex High stood at the center of the chamber. His blue skin seemed to glow under the lights, and his forearms moved as he spoke. We gather today to address the growing threat posed by primitive species. Recent events require immediate action. Jin-Woo kept his face blank as he listened. He knew what was coming. 3 months ago, human colonists in the Kepler system had defended themselves against raiders. The raiders happened to be Zephyrian criminals, but that detail seemed forgotten now. 2 weeks later, human ships had refused inspection by crystalline hegemony vessels. The humans had legal rights to refuse, but again, that was ignored. The Primitive Species Protection Act will ensure galactic stability. Vex High continued. Species that cannot control their aggressive tendencies must be supervised for the greater good. Ambassador Krath of the Zephyrian Alliance stood up. His breathing mask hissed as he spoke. The humans attacked our citizens without warning. They showed no mercy. No attempt at peaceful resolution. Jin-Woo almost smiled. The Zephyrian citizens had been pirates trying to steal mining equipment. The humans had sent 3 warnings before defending themselves. But none of the council members mentioned that fact. Representative Shaltara of the crystalline hegemony rose next, her body catching the light and throwing rainbows across the chamber. Human vessels refuse proper inspection protocols. They hide their activities behind claims of sovereignty. Such behavior threatens trade security. More lies, Jin-Woo thought. The crystalline ships had demanded to search human vessels without cause, looking for technology to steal. When politely refused, they had filed complaints. One by one, species presented their evidence against humanity. The Avian Confederation showed footage of human ships that looked too advanced for a primitive species. The Molten Core Empire complained that humans refused to share mining techniques. Each accusation built on the last. Jin-Woo listened without speaking. His orders were clear. Let them talk. Let them reveal their true intentions. Do not defend Earth's actions. Do not make excuses. Just listen and remember. Vex High spread his forearms wide. The evidence is overwhelming. Humanity poses a clear threat to galactic peace. The Protection Act offers a solution that benefits everyone. The proposed act was simple in its cruelty. Earth would be quarantined, cut off from all galactic trade and communication. Human colonies would be disbanded. Their populations scattered across the galaxy as supervised workers. No human would ever again control territory or resources. They would exist only as servants to more advanced species. The vote will take place tomorrow, Vex High announced. All species have until then to consider their position. As the session ended, other ambassadors chatted among themselves. Some seemed pleased with the coming vote. Others looked uncomfortable, but said nothing. A few approached Jin-Woo with what they probably thought were kind words. I'm sorry it has come to this, said Ambassador Uthmal of the Gentle Ring Coalition. Your species shows promise, but perhaps supervision would help you grow. Jin-Woo nodded politely. Thank you for your concern. The galaxy can be dangerous for young species," added Representative Feltalk of the Mining Guild. "Protection might be best for your people." More polite nods from Jin Woo. More empty words about humanity's welfare from beings who saw humans as useful pets at best. That evening, Jin Woo sat alone in his quarters aboard Concordia Prime, the massive space station that served as the Council's home. The walls were covered with art from dozens of worlds, gifts meant to show the unity of galactic civilization. Jin Woo had always found it ironic, art celebrating cooperation displayed in a place where the strong bullied the weak. His communication device chimed softly. A message waited, encrypted with codes only a few humans knew. Jin Woo read it twice, before deleting it forever. Package delivered to all human settlements. Operation Lazarus is go. You know what to do. Jin Woo stood and walked to his desk. 50 years of diplomatic files filled the drawers. Reports on council activities, trade agreements, military assessments, cultural exchanges, 5 decades of careful work, building relationships, and gathering information. He opened the first drawer and pulled out a stack of papers. Then he walked to the small fireplace in the corner of his room. Many species found fire comforting, so the station provided them in diplomat quarters. Tonight, Jin Woo would put his to good use. The papers caught flame easily. Treaties burned alongside trade agreements. Military reports turned to ash with cultural studies. 50 years of diplomatic work disappeared in orange light and gray smoke. As the last document crumbled to nothing, Jin Woo thought about tomorrow's vote. 43 species would decide humanity's fate based on lies and fear. They would vote to cage a species they saw as primitive and violent. They had no idea what was really coming. Through his window, stars shone in the darkness of space. Among them was Sol, Earth's sun, too far away to see but never forgotten. In a few hours, every human in the galaxy would receive the same message Jin Woo had gotten. The pretense would end. The galaxy would learn what humanity truly was. Jin Woo went to bed early. Tomorrow would be a very long day, and he wanted to be rested for it. After all, it wasn't every day that someone got to watch an entire galactic order collapse. Jin Woo Park walked into the council chamber carrying only a single datapad. The other members of the human delegation were nowhere to be seen. Empty seats stretched across the human section, making it look abandoned and forgotten. Ambassador Krath noticed first. His breathing mask hissed as he turned to look at the nearly empty human area. "Where is your delegation, Ambassador Park?" Jin Woo settled into his chair and placed the datapad on the table in front of him. They had other duties to attend to today. The answer seemed to satisfy most of the council members. Humans were primitive, after all. They probably couldn't understand the importance of today's vote. Their absence just proved the point that they needed supervision. Council leader Vex High called the session to order. His 4 arms gestured toward the center of the chamber, where a holographic display showed the text of the Primitive Species Protection Act. The words glowed softly against the dark background. "Today we vote on the future of galactic stability," Vex High announced. "Each species will cast their vote on the Protection Act. We begin with the Zephyrian Alliance." Ambassador Krath stood up, his breathing apparatus clicking. "The Zephyrian Alliance votes yes. The humans have proven they cannot control their violent nature. For the safety of all, they must be contained." The vote continued around the chamber. Species after species stood to announce their decision. The crystalline hegemony voted yes, claiming humans were too unpredictable for free movement. The Avian Confederation voted yes, worried about human military technology. The Molten Core Empire voted yes, wanting access to human mining worlds. A few species seemed uncomfortable. The Gentle Ring Coalition voted yes, but with obvious reluctance. The Scientific Union voted yes while mentioning their regret. The Small Worlds Federation voted yes, but asked for humane treatment of human populations. Through it all, Jinwoo sat quietly. He didn't take notes. He didn't react to the speeches. He simply watched and waited as democracy condemned his species to slavery. 42 species voted yes, none voted no. The Protection Act passed with overwhelming support. HFY turned toward the human section with what might have been sympathy on his alien features. Ambassador Park, the Council recognizes your right to respond before implementation begins. Jinwoo stood slowly. The chamber fell silent as all eyes turned toward him. He looked around at the gathered representatives, taking in their faces. Some looked satisfied. Others seemed ashamed. A few appeared genuinely sorry for what they had done. "Thank you, Council Leader HFY," Jinwoo said. His voice was calm and clear. "I have a brief statement to make." He picked up his data pad and held it in both hands. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from all galactic treaties. We will no longer participate in this Council's proceedings. All trade agreements are cancelled. All diplomatic relations are suspended. All cooperation accords are void. The chamber erupted in confused murmurs. Several ambassadors looked at each other with surprise. HFY raised one of his hands for silence. "Ambassador Park, I fear you misunderstand the situation," HFY said. "Your species cannot simply leave the galactic community. You lack the strength to survive alone. The Protection Act offers you safety and security." Jinwoo almost smiled. "Council Leader, I believe you are the one who misunderstands." He activated the data pad. A holographic projection appeared above the chamber, showing a view of space. At first, it looked like any other star system. A yellow sun, surrounded by planets. "This is the Sol system," Jinwoo announced. "Your records show it as the home of a primitive species with basic technology and limited military capability." The image zoomed in, focusing on the third planet from the sun. Earth appeared as expected. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown continents. But as the view changed, gasps echoed through the chamber. Massive orbital platforms surrounded Earth like a crown of metal and light. Each one was larger than Concordia Prime. Ships moved between them in streams of traffic that spoke of incredible industrial capacity. Defense grids stretched from platform to platform, creating layers of protection that made Council military bases look like toys. 3 hours ago, Jinwoo continued, every human colony, every human ship, every human citizen received the same message that Earth is now sending to you. We are done pretending to be weak. The hologram shifted to show other human worlds. Each one revealed the same truth. Advanced technology, massive infrastructure, military capabilities that dwarfed anything in Council space. The primitive, mining colonies were actually shipyards. The small, trading posts were manufacturing centers. Ambassador Krath's breathing mask was hissing rapidly now. This is impossible. Our intelligence reports showed primitive technology, basic spacecraft, limited industry. Your intelligence reports showed what we wanted you to see, Jinwoo replied. For 50 years, humanity has played the role of grateful junior species. We accepted your condescension, your restrictions, your attempts to limit our growth. We pretended to be primitive, while we built an industrial base that spans 47 star systems. Representative Shaltara of the crystalline hegemony rose from her platform of light. Her voice cracked like breaking glass. You deceived the entire council. This is an act of war. Jinwoo shook his head. This is an act of survival. You just voted to enslave my species. Did you think we would accept that without response? The datapad chimed, and new images appeared. Human ships were decloaking throughout the galaxy. Not just a few vessels. Thousands of them. Each one was larger and more advanced than the Council's finest warships. They appeared near every major world, every important trade route, every military installation. The humans have been hiding their true capabilities for 50 years, Jin Wu stated. As of this moment, we consider all previous agreements null and void. The galaxy has a new reality to accept. Chaos erupted in the chamber as the full scope of humanity's deception became clear. Some species demanded immediate military action. Others called for emergency sessions. A few wise ambassadors began calculating what surrender might look like. Through it all, Jinwu stood calmly at his table. The datapad showed real-time updates as human forces moved into position throughout known space. 50 years of careful planning was finally bearing fruit. The council chamber had become a storm of noise and fear. Representatives shouted at each other across the circular space. Some demanded explanations. Others called for immediate military response. A few sat in stunned silence as they processed what they had just learned. Vexhai's forearms waved frantically as he tried to restore order. Silence. We must have silence. His voice boomed through the chamber's speakers. But many ignored him. Ambassador Krath of the Zephyrian Alliance was speaking rapidly into his communication device, trying to reach his fleet commanders. His breathing mask fogged with each panicked breath. Representative Shaltara flickered between different colors as her crystalline body reflected her emotional state. Jinwu remained standing at his table, watching the chaos with calm eyes. The datapad in his hands continued to update with real-time information from across the galaxy. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. Ambassador Park. Vexhai's voice cut through the noise. You must explain this deception immediately. The chamber slowly quieted as Jinwu prepared to speak. He looked around at the frightened faces of beings who had just voted to enslave his species. There is no deception to explain, Jinwu said. Earth never stopped advancing. While you grew comfortable thinking you knew our capabilities, we continued to develop technology. Every trade agreement gave us access to your scientific knowledge. Every cultural exchange let us study your weaknesses. Every diplomatic meeting where you dismissed human engineers was an opportunity for them to learn about your systems. He gestured toward the holographic display, which now showed detailed technical specifications of human ships. The numbers were staggering. Energy outputs that exceeded Council flagships by orders of magnitude. Armor that could withstand weapons the Council considered planet killers. Speed capabilities that made human vessels faster than anything else in known space. How is this possible? Demanded Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Navy. Our intelligence networks monitor all primitive species. We would have detected this level of development. Jinwu activated another display. It showed Council intelligence assets throughout human space. Or what the Council thought were intelligence assets. Each one had been identified, monitored, and fed carefully crafted misinformation for decades. Your intelligence networks saw exactly what we wanted them to see, Jinwu explained. The orbital platforms you thought were mining stations were actually manufacturing centers. The research facilities you believed were studying basic physics were developing advanced weaponry. The trading posts you saw as primitive commerce hubs were intelligence gathering stations. The truth was even more devastating than the ships. For 50 years, humans had been present throughout Council space as engineers, technicians, traders, and diplomats. Each one had been gathering information, studying technology, and preparing for this moment. Admiral Kethvar tried to contact his fleet for an immediate response. His face grew pale as he listened to static. I cannot reach my ships, he announced to the chamber. Communications have been severed. Actor. Other military commanders reported the same problem. The crystalline hegemony's defense fleet was silent. The Avian Confederation's rapid response squadrons had gone dark. The Molten Core Empire's battle groups were cut off from command. Your military forces are unharmed, Jinwu assured them. We have simply interrupted their communication systems. Every piece of technology you shared with us over 5 decades included communication protocols. We improved those protocols and installed them in our own systems. Today, we use that knowledge to isolate your fleets. The scope of human infiltration was staggering. Council members began to realize that their most secure facilities had been compromised. Their military communications were controlled by human technology. Their trade networks depended on human-built systems that could be shut down at will. Representative Feltalk of the Mining Guild was reviewing economic data on his personal device. His hands shook as he spoke. The humans control 40% of our supply chains. If they cease operations, half the galaxy will face shortages within weeks. We have no intention of causing suffering to innocent populations, Jinwoo replied. Humanitarian supplies will continue to flow. Food, medicine, and basic necessities will not be interrupted. However, military supplies and luxury goods may experience delays. Ambassador Uthmal of the Gentle Ring Coalition stood up slowly. His aged voice carried a note of respect that hadn't been there before. You planned this for 50 years. You allowed us to believe we were superior, while you prepared for war. Not war, Jinwoo corrected. Liberation. War implies two sides with similar capabilities. What you see today is the end of one age and the beginning of another. Long-range sensors throughout the chamber began chiming with alerts. Technical staff rushed to their stations as new contacts appeared on the displays. A massive fleet was approaching Concordia Prime from the direction of Seoul. The ships were unlike anything in Council databases. Sleek, predatory designs that radiated power. Vex High stared at the tactical display with growing horror. How many ships are coming? Enough, Jinwoo replied simply. The lead ship was identified by its transmission codes. The Dreadnought, Soul's Promise. Flagship of the human fleet. It was accompanied by dozens of escort vessels, each one larger than the Council's heaviest cruisers. Some species representatives began to panic. A few tried to leave the chamber, only to discover that the station's transportation systems were locked down. Not destroyed, not damaged, simply controlled by human infiltrators who had been working on Concordia Prime for years. What do you want? Vexhai asked desperately. Jinwoo set his datapad on the table and looked around the chamber one final time. Representatives who had voted to enslave his species now begged for mercy from the primitive humans they had underestimated. Our terms are simple, Jinwoo announced. The Galactic Council is dissolved. Each species will negotiate individually with Earth for future relations. There will be no more voting to determine the fate of others. No more protection acts for primitive species. No more exploitation, disguised as supervision. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The galactic order that had existed for millennia was ending. The careful balance of power between major species was collapsing. Everything they had known was about to change. Some of you will accept this new reality peacefully, Jinwoo continued. You will find humanity to be generous partners. Others will resist and attempt to maintain the old ways. You will find humanity to be implacable enemies. Through the chamber's dome, the approaching human fleet grew visible against the stars. Ships that had been hidden for decades now moved openly, their weapons powered but not targeted. The message was clear. This could end peacefully or violently, but it would end. The Soul's Promise was 6 hours away and closing fast. The Galactic Council was falling apart. Species that had worked together for centuries now blamed each other for the crisis. Accusations flew across the chamber as representatives tried to escape responsibility for underestimating humanity. The Zephyrians should have detected their military buildup, shouted Representative Korthan of the Trading Federation. Your intelligence services failed us all. Admiral Kethvar's breathing mask hissed angrily. The crystalline hegemony approved their technology transfers. You gave them access to advanced materials. Representative Shaltara's crystalline body flashed red with anger. The mining guild placed them in sensitive positions throughout our industrial networks. Every species here bears responsibility. Jinwoo watched the breakdown with calm interest. For 50 years, these same species had worked together to exploit and control younger civilizations. Now that they faced consequences, their unity crumbled like sand. Several ambassadors attempted to leave the station. They discovered that all transport ships had been quietly disabled during the night. Not destroyed or damaged, simply prevented from starting their engines. Human technicians had worked on Concordia Prime for decades, maintaining the very systems that were now used to trap the council members. No one dies today unless they choose violence, Jinwoo announced to the chamber. You are not prisoners. You are witnesses to history. Vexhai's forearms trembled as he approached the human section. His blue skin had lost its usual glow and appeared almost gray. Ambassador Park, surely we can negotiate. The council has always been willing to adjust policies when needed. Jinwoo remained seated, his hands folded on the table. Council leader, the time for negotiation ended when you voted to enslave my species. You had 50 years to treat humanity with respect. Instead, you chose to see us as primitives who needed your guidance. The truth was more complex than simple revenge. Humans had studied council politics for decades. They understood how the system worked. Larger species dominated smaller ones through economic pressure and military threats. The council maintained order by keeping younger civilizations dependent and weak. What exactly do you want from us? Asked Ambassador Uthmal of the Gentle Ring Coalition. His voice carried genuine confusion, mixed with growing fear. Jinwoo activated his datapad, displaying humanity's formal demands. The terms appeared on screens throughout the chamber, written in every major galactic language. The Galactic Council will be dissolved immediately, Jinwoo read. Individual species must negotiate directly with Earth for future diplomatic relations. All protection treaties involving primitive species are declared null and void. Military restrictions on developing civilizations are eliminated. The demands continued with shocking specificity. Humans had detailed knowledge of every council member's military capabilities, economic weaknesses, and political structures. They knew which species could be trusted and which would cause trouble. They understood exactly how much pressure to apply to each government. Representative Shaltara's body cycled through multiple colors as she processed the information. You cannot simply dissolve the council. The galactic economy depends on our coordination. Without central authority, there will be chaos. There will be change, Jinwoo corrected. Whether that change brings chaos or prosperity depends on how each species chooses to adapt. The crystalline hegemony had built much of their wealth on controlling trade between different regions of space. Without council backing, they would lose their monopoly on several important routes. The Zephyrian alliance depended on military contracts to maintain their economy. Without council authority to enforce protection agreements, their income would disappear. Other species faced different challenges. The mining guild had used council regulations to exclude competitors from valuable asteroid fields. The scientific union had relied on council funding to maintain their research networks. Each member would need to find new ways to survive in a galaxy where humanity set the rules. Show them the files, Jinwoo said quietly into his communication device. New displays activated throughout the chamber. Detailed intelligence files appeared, showing what humans had learned about each council member during 50 years of careful observation. Military strengths and weaknesses, economic vulnerabilities, political corruption, secret alliances, everything was documented with devastating accuracy. The Zephyrian Alliance discovered that humans knew about their illegal weapons testing in neutral space. The crystalline hegemony learned that their trade manipulations had been monitored for decades. The Avian Confederation found their secret territorial expansion plans exposed to everyone. Admiral Kethvar stared at tactical assessments of his own fleets. The humans knew the location of every Zephyrian military base, the specifications of every ship class, the details of every defense protocol. This level of intelligence gathering is impossible. You would need agents in our most secure facilities. We did have agents in your most secure facilities, Jinwoo replied. Human engineers, technicians, and advisors worked throughout your territories. You thought they were primitive beings grateful for your employment. In reality, they were intelligence operatives, building detailed pictures of your capabilities. The scope of human infiltration became clearer with each revelation. Council members realized that their most sensitive projects had been compromised. Their military communications used human-designed components. Their computers ran on human-improved software. Their transportation networks depended on human maintenance. Long-range sensors detected the approaching human fleet growing closer. The Soul's promise led a formation of ships that demonstrated technologies beyond Council understanding. Engines that produced no detectable exhaust. Weapons that channeled energy in impossible ways. Shields that seemed to bend space itself. Your technology is centuries ahead of ours, whispered Representative Feltalk. How did you advance so quickly? Jinwoo stood and walked toward the chamber's center, where holographic displays showed the approaching fleet. We never stopped learning. Every piece of technology you shared with us was studied, improved, and integrated into our own systems. Every trade agreement gave us access to new scientific knowledge. Every cultural exchange let our scientists observe your methods. The truth was that humanity possessed something the Council species had lost: the hunger for constant improvement. While they had grown comfortable with their technological superiority, humans had worked tirelessly to surpass them. Every interaction with Council species became a learning opportunity. We also had advantages you never recognized, Jinwoo continued. Earth is what you call a death world. A planet so dangerous that survival requires constant adaptation. This environment produced a species with remarkable resilience and creativity. While you saw our emotional nature as a weakness, we understood it as a strength that drove us to protect what we valued. The approaching human fleet was now visible through the chamber's dome. Sleek ships moved in perfect formation, their presence transforming the political landscape of the galaxy. What had begun as a vote to control primitive humans had become the end of an era. In 3 hours, the Soul's promise would dock with Concordia Prime, and the galaxy would learn what humanity truly intended for the future. The massive dreadnought Soul's promise approached Concordia Prime like a predator closing on its prey. Through the chamber's dome, Council members watched as the human flagship extended docking arms to connect with the station. The ship was beautiful and terrifying. Sleek lines that suggested speed, weapon ports that radiated power, and a design that seemed to flow like liquid metal. Captain Sarah Chen stepped through the airlock with only a small escort of human officers. They wore simple uniforms without visible weapons, walking with the confidence of people who knew they had already won. Behind them came technical specialists carrying portable devices that would integrate with the station's systems. The Council members watched through chamber screens as Chen's team moved through Concordia Prime's corridors. There was no violence, no destruction, no threatening displays. Human personnel simply took control of critical systems with professional competence that highlighted how easily they could have done this any time during the past 50 years. Station operations are now under human oversight, Captain Chen announced through the communication system. All civilian functions will continue normally. Safety protocols remain in effect. Anyone attempting to sabotage station systems will be detained. Jinwoo remained in the council chamber as representatives from 43 species struggled to understand their new reality. Some species had already begun calculating how to align themselves with humanity. Others plotted resistance. A few simply sat in shocked silence. I want to address any remaining confusion about humanity's position, Jinwoo announced to the chamber. We bear no hatred toward any species represented here. We are simply tired of pretending to be lesser than we are. He activated his datapad one final time, displaying a star map that showed the true scope of human expansion. 47 star systems contained human colonies, not the 12 that Council records indicated. Industrial capacity that dwarfed the combined output of all Council species. Military forces positioned to control every major hyperspace route in the galaxy. The galaxy is large enough for all of us, Jinwoo continued. But not under the current system. The age of Council dominance is ending. What comes next depends on the choices each species makes in the coming days. Some Council members began to understand the brilliance of humanity's long strategy. While they had focused on maintaining their existing advantages, humans had been building the foundation for a completely new order. Every trade agreement, every cultural exchange, every diplomatic interaction had served a purpose beyond what it appeared. Ambassador Uthmal, of the Gentle Ring Coalition, stood slowly, his aged voice carrying new respect. You allowed us to believe we were superior while you planned this transformation. How long have you known this day would come? From the beginning, Jinwoo replied honestly. The moment humanity joined the galactic community, we understood that we would eventually need to choose between submission and dominance. We chose a third option: patience followed by overwhelming action. The strategy had required incredible discipline. For 50 years, human leaders had endured condescension and restrictions while building the foundation for this moment. They had watched other species vote to exploit primitive civilizations while secretly preparing to end such exploitation forever. Representative Shaltara of the crystalline hegemony flickered through worried colors. What guarantees do we have that humanity will not become the same threat to others that you claim we represented? It was the crucial question, and Jinwoo had expected it. You have no guarantees except our actions. Judge us by what we do, not what we say. The primitive species you voted to protect will now have the freedom to choose their own paths. Former council members will negotiate as equals rather than dictate terms to inferiors. The final council session began without formal procedures. Vexhai no longer bothered to call for order or follow parliamentary rules. The institution was ending, and everyone present understood that reality. One by one, species announced their positions. The Gentle Ring Coalition accepted the new order and requested formal diplomatic relations with Earth. The Scientific Union offered to share research in exchange for access to human technology. The Small Worlds Federation expressed gratitude that they would no longer face exploitation. Other species remained defiant. The Zephyrian Alliance refused to recognize human authority. The crystalline hegemony demanded negotiations to maintain their trade monopolies. The Molten Core Empire threatened to resist any changes to existing territorial agreements. Resistance is each species' right, Jinwoo acknowledged. However, the consequences of that choice should be clearly understood. Humanity is not seeking to conquer or destroy. We simply will not allow the continuation of a system that exploits the weak. Captain Chen's voice came through the communication system again. Long-range sensors detect multiple Council fleet movements toward human territory. Advisory: any hostile actions against human colonies or shipping will be met with proportional response. The message was clear without being threatening. Humanity had the power to enforce its will throughout the galaxy, but preferred to let others choose their level of cooperation. Those who accepted the new reality would find humanity to be generous partners. Those who resisted would discover that human patience had limits. As the session ended, Jinwoo prepared to leave Concordia Prime for the last time. His mission was complete. The galactic order that had existed for millennia was dissolving. What would replace it remained to be written. Captain Chen met him at the docking port where a human shuttle waited to take him home. Through the viewport, Earth was visible in the distance. A blue world that had seemed so vulnerable just hours before. How do you think history will judge what we've done today? Chen asked as they departed the station. Jinwoo watched Concordia Prime shrink behind them. Other ships were already leaving as species representatives rushed home to report the transformation. Some would prepare for war. Other have, seeing, Rakin to her found, one to her found, and Iza. Others would send diplomats to negotiate new relationships. All would understand that the galaxy had changed forever. History will judge us by what comes next, Jinwoo replied. We've proven that humanity cannot be underestimated. Now we must prove that we deserve the power we've claimed. The shuttle turned toward Earth, carrying them away from the end of one era and toward the beginning of another. Behind them, the galaxy began adapting to a new reality where humans were no longer the primitive species that needed protection, but the dominant force that would shape the future of interstellar civilization. The age of human dominance had begun not with conquest, but with the patience to appear weak until the moment came to reveal overwhelming strength.